Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic. As the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Here are tonight's news. First, China moved to quash Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement by unveiling plans for a new security law at the start of its annual parliamentary session that also laid bare the immense economic challenges caused by the coronavirus. Wang Chen, deputy chairman of the NPC Standing Committee, told delegates Beijing must take powerful measures to lawfully prevent, stop, and punish anti-China forces in Hong Kong. Let's listen in.
当前一个突出问题就是香港特别行政区国家安全风险日益凸显，特别是2019年香港发生修例风波以来，反中乱港势力公然鼓吹港独、自决、公投等主张，从事破坏国家统一、分裂国家的活动，公然侮辱、污损 国旗、国徽，煽动港人反。
The draft proposal to be debated by Beijing's top leaders will guard against, stop, and punish any separatism, subversion of the national regime, terrorist group activities, and such behaviors that seriously harm national security. It would authorize Chinese lawmakers to directly enact long-delayed Hong Kong security legislation itself at a future date, rather than leaving it up to the territory's administration. China made clear it wanted the legislation passed after Hong Kong was rocked by 7 months of massive and sometimes violent pro-democracy protests last year. An initial bid to enact such legislation in 2003 was shelved after 500,000 people took to the streets in protest. Meanwhile, pro-democracy campaigners said China has launched one of its fiercest assaults on Hong Kong's treasured autonomy with its move to impose a security law. Take a look.
Xi Jinping is burning Hong Kong, and China will burn with us. And it's sad, because it's not the people of Hong Kong only. The Chinese people are also will suffer because of this Xi Jinping, who want to burn everything down. Happen. Maybe, by burning together, we will find a new Hong Kong, a new China. And so I think there also always hope when the other side, the enemy, is so crazy. So I think the people of Hong Kong will continue our struggle. We will come out against this national security law as we have come out against the whole extradition bill and the the Article 23 back. So they are challenging the world. Are you going to do something for Hong Kong? If you are not doing anything for Hong Kong, then they will do that. So I believe very much that actually this challenge to the world is whether the world, international community is willing to stand up for freedom.
I just mentioned this is a complete destruction of one country, two systems, and also it's a complete dishonor of promises that made under the Sino and British joint declaration, as well as all the promises that have been made by the Chinese government towards the world. So
the proposal for the security law, expected to ban treason, subversion, and sedition, was introduced into China's rubber-stamp parliament at the opening of its annual session on Friday morning. Article 23 of Hong Kong's mini constitution, known as the Basic Law, says the city must enact national security legislation to prohibit treason, secession, sedition, and subversion against Chinese government. Hong Kong has been trying to introduce a law for years, but pro-democracy demonstrations that paralyzed the city last year have pushed the issue up the agenda and galvanized Beijing. Hong Kong has been allowed a limited form of autonomy since returning from British to Chinese rule in 1997, with those unique freedoms enshrined under a one country, two systems handover agreement. In a statement on Friday, Hong Kong's leader Carrie Lam vowed to fully cooperate with Beijing over the law. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump promised to respond very strongly once details emerge, and U.S. senators introduced legislation to impose sanctions on any entity involved in curbing Hong Kong's autonomy. Targets could include police who crack down on demonstrators, Chinese officials involved in Hong Kong policy, and banks that conduct transactions with anyone who infringes on its freedoms. Meanwhile, China said it opposes any foreign interference over Hong Kong. Beijing says its resolve to oppose any interference in Hong Kong affairs is, quote, unshakable after U.S. President Trump promised to respond very strongly once details emerge on the national security law for Hong Kong. Take a look.
香港是中国的一个特别行政区，香港特区维护国家安全立法的问题纯属中国内政。 任何外国无权干预。中国政府维护国家主权、安全、发展利益的决心坚定不移，贯彻“一国两制”的方针的决心坚定不移，反对任何外部势力干预香港事务的决心坚定不移。国家安全是国家生存发展的基本前提。放眼世界。 没有任何国家允许在其本国领土从事分裂国家等危害国家安全的活动。
Meanwhile, President Trump hinted at an upcoming announcement on reopening places of worship as important to the nation's healing. Let's listen in.
I spoke today about our churches. Our churches are closed, and I said to CDC, I had a great conversation. I said, our people want to go back to church on Sundays. And our churches want to take care of their parishioners, their people that go to worship. And you're going to see something come out very soon about opening up our churches.
A Pakistan passenger plane with more than 100 people believed to be on board crashed in the southern city of Karachi, the country's aviation authority said. Take a look. Images aired on national television show the Pakistan International Airlines, or PIA, flight had smashed into a residential area with clouds of thick black smoke billowing from the site. Abdul Sattar Kokar, the spokesman for the country's aviation authority, said the aircraft was an Airbus A320 and was en route to Karachi. The Pakistan military later tweeted that security forces had been deployed to the area and helicopters were being used to survey the damage and help ongoing rescue operations. It comes just days after the country began allowing commercial flights to resume after planes were grounded during a lockdown over the coronavirus pandemic. The crash comes as Pakistanis across the country are preparing to celebrate the end of Ramadan and the beginning of Eid al-Fitr, with many traveling back to their homes in cities and villages. Meanwhile, the novel coronavirus death toll in Brazil surpassed 20,000 on Thursday after a record number of fatalities in a 24-hour period, according to the health ministry. The country is the epicenter of the outbreak in Latin America, and its highest one-day toll of 1,188 pushed the overall death tally to 20,047. Brazil has now recorded more than 310,000 cases, with experts saying a lack of testing means the real figures are probably much higher. With its curve of infections and deaths rising sharply, the country of 210 million ranks third in the world in terms of total cases, behind the United States and Russia. The death toll, the sixth highest in the world, has doubled in just 11 days, according to ministry data. Despite the worrying spread of the disease, far-right President Jair Bolsonaro on Thursday continued his calls to scrap lockdown measures to revive a flagging economy. Sao Paulo State, the economic and cultural capital of Brazil, is by far the most affected, with about a quarter of the country's deaths and infections. Sao Paulo Governor João Doria, who has clashed often with the president over containment measures, has said the country has to fight both coronavirus and Bolsonaro virus. Hospitals in Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and various states across northern and northeastern Brazil are near collapse. And the authorities have been racing to set up field hospitals with more beds, but they're struggling to build them fast enough. Okay, the United Kingdom is to introduce a 14-day quarantine for international flights, plus updates in Ireland. And joining us from our EBC Ireland Bureau is Rowana Bianca. Hello, Rowana.
Hi, Alma. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. What are your updates from Ireland?
So my updates from Ireland are work has begun on preparations for a second wave of COVID-19 in the Republic of Ireland this autumn or early winter. It was reported from BBC that phase 1 of easing restrictions was going well with broad compliance across the country. Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, or the Irish Prime Minister, told the Dáil or the Irish Parliament. But he added that it still requires continued vigilance, as Irish Health Minister Simon Harris advised that the R number is down to 0.5. R is referred to the average number of people someone with COVID-19 is expected to infect after contracting the virus. Mr. Varadkar also defended the pace that Ireland is taking, which is slow and steady approach. Speaking about preparations for a second wave of coronavirus in the autumn, Mr. Varadkar said, "We need to know, if possible, how to better protect nursing homes." Ireland can now perform 100,000 tests a week and a turnabout time for most cases of 1 to 3 days. Cabinet will decide on the 5th of June if the second phase of the relaxation due on the 8th of June will be moved. This will mean that the current 5-kilometer travel limit is to be extended to 20 kilometers, and other business in which social distancing can be followed will reopen. In terms of infrastructure, he said COVID-19 is going to impose extra cost. It's going to cost more to do less, he said. He told the Dáil that it is still necessary to continue with substantial borrowing. Also, according to BBC, Mr. Varadkar said the Republic should follow the example of Northern Europe countries. Interest will have to be paid, and it was not guaranteed that low inflation and interest rates would continue. There's no such thing as free money, he said. He also said many parts of the Irish economy might not be the same again, and Brexit complicates the matter even more. There will also be updates from the government on travel measures at airports and ports. He announced, regardless of anyone's nationality, when you come through an airport or port, now you will need to fill out a passenger's location form, whereby a person is asked to self-isolate for 2 weeks and provide the state with an address where they will be self-isolating. This is the land of the Céad Míle Fáilte, 100,000 welcomes, but now is not the time for non-essential travel, he said. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis confirmed Friday that Britain is to introduce a quarantine period of 14 days for those arriving in UK, and said further details would later be given by the ministers. For the UK citizens coming back, they'll be able to quarantine at home. For visitors, they will need to make arrangements to do the quarantine for 14 days. The plans are expected to come into force next month, and further details would be outlined by Home Secretary Priti Patel at the daily Downing Street briefing. Lewis said this policy would be reviewed every 3 weeks. They could be fined £1,000 if they fail to self-isolate for 14 days. There are expected to be exemptions for road haulers and medical officials, while the common travel area with Ireland will be unaffected. But it is thought that arrivals from France will have to quarantine, despite claims earlier this month there would be an exception. The move is likely to prove controversial, especially among the aviation sector. Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary earlier this week branded a proposed quarantine plan idiotic, while trade body Airline UK has said it would effectively kill international travel to the UK. There has been criticism within the UK about the lack of quarantine, while other countries such as South Korea, Spain, and the US did impose such restrictions, while others are questioning why the measures are being imposed now. Meanwhile, the scientific advice given to the government, which informed plans to send some pupils in England back to school, will be published later. It comes after more than 35 councils warned that not all of the primary schools will be ready to reopen on the 1st of June. On Thursday, Health Secretary Matt Hancock said a new coronavirus test that gives results in 20 minutes is being trialed. The swab test, which would show whether someone currently has the virus, does not need to be sent to a lab. He also said more than 10 million antibody tests that check if someone has had the virus in the past will begin to be rolled out next week. Latest figure shows that 36,042 people with the virus have died in the UK. Back to you, Alma.
So, Rowana, how are you doing? How are you coping right now over there in Ireland?
With myself and my family, we're doing well over here. We continue to comply with the instructions of the government with regards to social distancing, and as much as possible, we're following by working from home. So we're very good here, keeping
So
healthy.
you're still working from home?
Yes, but most of the weeks in a month, I work from home.
But
Sometimes.
What businesses have opened already in Ireland?
Looking within our town here, po, a number of shops have opened where they've implied the one system rule within the shops,
And
along with constant social distancing. Po.
all right. Okay, thank you so much for your time, Rowana, and keep the updates coming from Ireland. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Alma. I'm Rowena Bianca Arino, correspondent in the Republic of Ireland, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, France is in the de-confinement stage amid the coronavirus woes. Joining us live from Nice, France, is Janine Pegolio. Hello, Janine. Hello, Janine. Can you hear me? There you go. I can see you now. Hi, Janine. Okay, I can't hear you. Can you please unmute your audio? Maybe, can you unmute your audio? Oh, okay, we lost her. Okay, we'll try and get back with Janine in a little while as soon as we have a better connection. Okay, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe lifted a state of emergency in several big cities in western Japan, Osaka, Kyoto, and Hyogo, and hints that the measure will be removed nationwide as early as next week. Let's get that report from Dennis Liu. Hello, Dennis.
Hello, Alma. I'm back and good evening to all our televiewers from around the world. Here in Japan, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe lifts a state of emergency in several big cities in western Japan, Osaka, Kyoto, and Hyogo, and hints that the measure will be removed nationwide as early as next week. The emergency has ended in 42 of the country's 47 prefectures. The Tokyo metropolitan area and Hokkaido in northern Japan will remain under the state of emergency, but Prime Minister Abe said they may see it lifted as early as Monday after a review by health experts. In the Tokyo area and Hokkaido, the number of infections has been falling. In April, a month-long state of emergency was first imposed in limited areas including Tokyo and Osaka and expanded nationwide. Abe then extended it until May 31st, but the measure was removed in 39 prefectures last week after the spread of the virus was kept in check. The government divided the remaining 8 prefectures into groups based on geographical proximity and economic linkages in lifting the state of emergency, as sought by local governors. One group consists of Osaka, Kyoto, and Hyogo in the Kansai region, while the other includes Tokyo, Chiba, Kanagawa, and Saitama. Hokkaido does not belong to either group but has been hit by a fresh wave of infections. Despite Thursday's partial lifting, health experts say it is too early to lower the guard because the infections can surge anytime. Back to you, Alma.
So what were the, Dennis, what were the criteria followed in deciding to lift the emergency?
The Japanese government and experts use one criteria, whether new infections have fallen below 0.5 per 100,000 people in the past week, in determining whether to ease the emergency. In Tokyo, with a population of about 14 million, that means the number of people infected with the virus would have to be fewer than 70 in 1 week. Tokyo, Kanagawa, and Hokkaido have yet to clear that threshold, although Chiba and Saitama are already below the level. Alma?
Japan was reported to have fallen into a recession for the first time since 2015, shrinking at an annual pace of 3.4% in the first 3 months of 2020 due to the coronavirus. So how is the government planning to rejuvenate this recession-hit economy?
Yes, Alma. The Bank of Japan expanded its loan program by 30 trillion yen, or 279 billion US dollars, bringing its total package of financial assistance to small and medium-sized firms to 75 trillion yen. As you know, Japan was already struggling from the effects of natural disasters and the hike in consumption tax even before the pandemic. Last month, the BOJ fired off its monetary policy bazooka, offering unlimited purchases of government bonds and more than doubling its upper limit of corporate bond buys. It pledged again to maintain financial stability, closely monitor the impact of the coronavirus, and vowed it will not hesitate to take additional easing measures if necessary. The central bank aims to keep the inflation rate at around 2%, but did not take any monetary policy action at Friday's meeting. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis, for your updates. Keep safe. Stay well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
All right, let's go over to France, where the country is in the de-confinement stage amid the coronavirus woes. Janine Pegolio joins us from Nice, France. Hello, Janine. Good evening from Manila. Can you hear me, Janine? Hi, Janine. Can you hear me? Okay, Janine, can you hear me? What are your updates from France? I think we're having some signal problems. Okay, first let's go over to Lebanon, where it's facing its worst economic crisis since the Civil War of 1975 to 1990, and it's now being compounded by more than 2 months of the coronavirus lockdown as well. We're bringing the latest from Lebanon. Joining us live is Girly Salazar. Hello, Girly. Girly, hello. Okay, Girly, can you hear me? Okay, let's go first to Australia. We are joined live by Mia Macapagal. Hello, Mia.
Hi, Alma.
Hi. Okay, it's good to hear you. All right, what are your updates from Australia?
Yes, so I will be bringing the latest figures and updates of the COVID-19 pandemic here in Australia. As of 3 p.m. yesterday, there has been a confirmation of 50 new cases that arose in the last 24 hours, 12 from the state of Victoria and 3 from New South Wales. These cases contribute in the total case count of 7,095, with 6,479 recovered and 101 deaths. Continuing with other updates, the nation's continuation of gradually easing restrictions is observed. With the National Three-Step Plan in consideration, the ease of these restrictions is dependent on the decision of each state. Therefore, this has positioned the states of the nation in different situations. For example, Queensland is currently in the first step of the plan and is scheduled to move forward into the second step on the 12th of June, with each other state having its own scheduled plan. However, as one nation, it is observed that we are seeing more cars on the road, more picnics at parks, businesses returning to a more stable economy, and the conduction of intimate gatherings are on the rise. Despite the reduction of restrictions, authorities continue to emphasize the importance of following the guidelines of social distancing and the practice of good hygiene. As Australia continues to live in these unprecedented times, we continue to find the right balance in this new normal. Back to you, Alma.
Okay, so countries, counties, provinces opening up their economies. What is the government doing to help businesses in reopening their small businesses over there in Australia?
Yes, so the COVID-19 situation continues to be a threat, especially to businesses, and that is evident as they continue to manage it. There are different ways that the government has provided assistance. So the temporary relief packages involve the Australian Tax Office to initiate measures for struggling businesses, such as withholding or providing temporary leniency on enforcement actions. The temporary cash flow boost from the government aims to provide support to employers who are struggling to keep their employees with a stable income. Cash flow boosts of up to $100,000 through credits can be eligible for certain businesses. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much, Mia, and keep the updates coming in Australia. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Alma. From Brisbane, Australia, this is Mia Makpagal, Eagle News, and we live in interesting times.
Okay, secondary schools in the Netherlands will reopen next month. Joining us live from the Netherlands is Malu Francisco with her special guest. Hello, Malu.
Hi, Alma. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. And in a short while, we'll be introducing to you somebody from the Netherlands, and we'll get some reactions on the parents' reactions on the students coming back to school. And we'll introduce her later. In the meantime, our students, teachers, and school personnel will get more chances to see one another again as schools, secondary schools reopen next month. And of course, learning from home will now be combined with learning in actual classrooms after 2 months of lockdown. Now, the students and parents are advised to walk their children to school or to cycle, and to avoid public transportation as much as possible to avoid overcrowding. However, if they live very far away from the schools, special transport arrangement will be made. Meanwhile, recently, that was 2 weeks ago actually, the reopening of the primary schools here in the Netherlands, including daycare centers. And of course, as students came back to their schools under the new normal, new arrangement. So reduce school frequency, meaning to say instead of meeting 5 days in a row in their school, they're now limited to twice a week and the rest of the days at home. And then the length of stay in the school has been reduced to, let's say, half a day. And the other half is spent learning from home. Markers and symbols have been placed in the schools to emphasize the importance of social distancing and the hygiene practices. So as we mentioned a while ago, Alma, parents' reactions, and you can't blame them. As a mother, when your child goes back to school during the crisis, you are worried. So anxiety has set in, there is fear. And let's find out from a parent who has 2 children. One goes to a daycare center and one is an autistic individual who goes to special school. We're talking about the parent who used to work as a nurse here in the Netherlands, Mrs. Auralien Finessa Reyes, who comes from Nijmegen in the southeastern part of the Netherlands. Here she is. Hi, Aura.
Hi, good afternoon, Miss Madu, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, Miss Alma.
Good evening, Aura, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting. Yeah.
Yes, and I'd like to ask you, tell us about your experience when your kids went back to the daycare and to the special education school after 2 months of lockdown over there.
Okay, this is a very, very difficult decision for us parents, and most especially, we all know the fatality of the coronavirus, that everybody is not safe, and the number of cases, the number of deaths throughout the world. And as a parents, it sounds like a little bit exaggerated, but I know the feeling of the parents out there who has children going to school. And since the announcement of the government that the school will be reopened, it started to increase my anxiety. I have a sleepless night, and there's a lot of questions coming from my mind. Is the school ready for this pandemic crisis? How the school will be able to prepare for my child? And considering the age of my child, the youngest one is at about 2 years of age, how can you able to instruct her to avoid or to maintain social distancing? And the other one is a 14-year-old child concerning the disability he is diagnosed with a learning disability. He do not know exactly what is happening outside, what is all about corona, or what are the implications of this, how can he able to maintain social distancing, and most specifically how to wear masks. And those are the things that need to be emphasized, and that's brought me a lot of anxiety and confusions. And as a matter of fact, the opening of the daycare center started May 11, and for that reason, we are so hesitated to bring our child to the daycare. So we waited for another week. So we have to look around and what's the situation and how many cases are there. So how the schools are being prepared for this kind of pandemic crisis.
Aura, if I may ask, so how long did you have this kind of feeling, being anxious and being fearful, and how did you overcome that?
Actually, it helps a lot because since the announcement of this school that they were going to open, the communication between me, between my family and the teachers, we have a constant communication, and then they helps me a lot to alleviate my feeling of anxiety. And all of my questions are being asked, how to maintain the social distancing. And because of the constant communication, they discuss the policies, the guidelines. They are very strict with the implementation of the guidelines. For example, parents are not allowed inside the school. The taxi of the school bus also not allowed to get inside the school premises. Toilets are being separated for them. There are pick-up time, pick-up point, and also there's guidelines where is the entrance, where is the exit for the children, what are the time for the use of the gym. They divided the time of using the public facilities, for example, the playground, something like that. And beforehand, we discussed it with these experts, with the school, the chances of infecting the child at the age of 0 to 12 is minimal, but still the fear is there. But the chance of infecting other people is minimal. So, but still the precautions are strictly implemented. Okay. And I read a lot about the news, and then I check all the data, the graphic from the Research Institute of Netherlands, how many cases per day, and also continuous and communication with somebody, a friend, or old colleagues, how the policies are being implemented. And me personally was able to witness how strict they are in the daycare center. You cannot able to bring the child instantly entering the gate. There is a specific line, and you should avoid making contacts with the other parents. So, and then they have to check the temperature, because if their child has a fever or has sneeze a lot or flu-like symptoms, definitely you cannot bring your child to the daycare center. Okay. So those things help me a lot just to alleviate my anxiety. And now I feel relaxed because, yeah, the Prime Minister announced that the reopening of the class will start by June 8th. So it has a positive side that it's getting better, that the day structure of my son will be coming back to normal, and there will be a time for me to relax and to energize, and also I have a time to organize things at home. Well, so those are the negative and the positive sides as a parent like me.
Great to hear that, Aura. Well, Alma, before I just come up with my next question, do you have any follow-up?
I know how worried you must be, but how are you making your son feel comfortable during this situation?
For a child with an autism, changing day structure is difficult. That is one of these symptoms or a classic description of an autism child. So just imagine that he stayed at home for 2 months and suddenly going back to school it's a big change for my son. So beforehand, we decided that we should gradually increase or step-by-step procedure. We started with wearing a mask at home, and then we roam around here outside in the playground wearing the mask just to make him realize how it feels to wear a mask, and also coming at home, wash your hands, and also taking to the taxi, because you have to wear a mask inside the taxi just to protect yourself. And we started by, for example, instead of 5 days in a week, we started by 2 times per week. So, and then next week, another 2 days, and then on the starting of the class, so it will be from 2 days to 5 days in a week. Okay. So something like that. It has to be a gradual, step-by-step procedure, and he is guided by a pictos. Basically, he's very good with visuals, so he can able to understand easily what is mask, what is hand washing, where is the toilet, something like that. And the problem with my son is that he's unable to express what he feels, because if there's a pain or if he has a something like a fever, it's very difficult for him to verbalize what he feels. And that's also one we are taking into considerations at school. So I am properly guided by the teachers, and I have a continuous appointment with the experts, and through proper information. That is basically the most important.
Oh, that's really very important. Yes, you sound like you're so engaged and so involved. And I think that helps your son a lot, who is 14 years old and autistic and is not able to verbalize. Well, Alma, here we've gotten a glimpse of what it is like for a parent of an autistic individual and how involved she is. To think that she has an almost 2-year-old girl and then, of course, an autistic son. But for those who are not familiar with autism, what do you call this, spectrum disorder, or ASD, there are different kinds or degrees. And our son, Ponjing, he can function. He's independent. I should see he's baking and so on. His baking is so scheduled strictly. There is a strict schedule, and he doesn't want disorganized things. I've been doing interviews with her because we're doing a special feature on her autistic son. And just so we can all be educated on what autism it is, and that what an autistic individual can do that we, as considered normal, can do. They have special qualities, I tell you, and that's just being organized. Well, I'm hands up.
That's true.
All right. And that's why for Aura, it was so important for the child to go back to school, because the structure of the structured activities. So thank you so much, Aura. And we're just hoping that you'll come back and tell us more about the experience of Ponjing. And so back to you, Alma. Thank you very much, Marilu.
Thank you very much,
in the Netherlands. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Aura, and thank you, Marilu. Thank you so much. All right, the Iglesia ni Cristo launched an Aid to Humanity in Spain amid the pandemic. Catherine Ferrer Arceo from our EBC Madrid, Spain Bureau reports.
Because of the state of alarm, many businesses have been closed. That's why many people lost their jobs and many families received no income. That's why the members of the Church of Christ in Madrid, Spain, conducted an Aid to Humanity to help those in need.
Ako po at ang aking buong pamilya ay pusong nagpapasalamat sa ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan, kay Eduardo B. Manalo, sa tulong po na ibinigay niyo sa amin. Maraming salamat po.
Nilalayon po ng mga ganitong mga aktibidad po ng iglesia, kaya pinagtitibay po ng ating pamamahala ay para tuparin po yung utos ng ating Panginoong Diyos na nakasulat po sa Biblia na dapat pong damayan yung mga nangangailangan. Kaya katulad po dito sa aming bansa, dito sa Espanya, na labis na naapektuhan ng COVID-19, ay gano'n na lang po ang kalaking pasalamat ng mga kapatid po na nabigyan po ng ganitong mga paglingap. Kaya ang mga kapatid dito po sa lokal ng Madrid ay patuloy po ang aming pagpapasalamat sa atin pong tagapamahalang pangkalahatan at ang pangako po namin ay patuloy po kaming magpapakasigla sa mga paglilingkod natin sa ating Panginoong Diyos.
Thanks to the activity Aid to Humanity with Brother Eduardo V. Manalo's leadership, Executive Minister of the Church of Christ has been helped many families who are very grateful with this assistance received. Reporting from Madrid, Spain, I am Caterina Theo. We live in interesting times.
And France is in the de-confinement stage amid the coronavirus woes. Okay, let's try to bring back Janine Pegolio. Hello, Janine. Hello, Janine. Can you hear me now?
Hello, Alma. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? So good to see you. Okay, so what are your updates from France?
Good to see you too.
Yes, go ahead.
So here's the update for the COVID-19 in France. As of today, and days ago, there are 143,800 confirmed cases, wherein 63,304 have recovered, and 88% is declining every day. The phase of the confinement, people can go out now without filling up a travel declaration, but they can go further than 100 kilometers unless if it's for work. Social distancing is highly required as people must respect 1 meter of distance, and in public transportation they must wear a mask. The Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, assured the French people that they can go to vacation in France during the holiday. Since May 11, shops are open, but restaurants, bar, and cafe are still closed. The tentative date of reopening is on June 2. The Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe, said that a decision will be taken around May 25 if restaurant, bars, and cafe can reopen. Big malls are still closed because they might attract a lot of people. The government has also promised that they will do their best to save the tourism. The Secretary of State in charge of tourism, Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne, would like to reopen some tourist spots starting June 21. Preschools and primary schools are open, but they can't accommodate more than 15 pupils per class. High schools most likely to reopen around the beginning of June. 25 new clusters emerged since May 11, but the Minister of Health, Olivier Véran, ensured that the system set off to test, isolate, and break the contamination chains is operational. That's the update for France. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much, Janine. Good to hear from you. Thank you so much, and keep the updates coming from France. Thank you so much. We'll see you back. Okay, that was Janine Pegolio reporting from Nice, France. All right, Lebanon is facing its worst economic crisis since the 1975 to 1990 civil war, now compounded by more than 2 months of a coronavirus lockdown. We bring you the latest from Lebanon. Joining us live from Lebanon is Gurley Salazar. Hello, Gurley. The latest from Lebanon. Joining us live from Lebanon is Gurley Salazar. Hello, Gurley.
Hi, Alma. I'm sorry for my weak connection.
Okay.
The protests here are still ongoing. Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab marked 100 days in office and boasted about his government's achievements during a speech at the Grand Syria. But a few blocks away, protests were ongoing since last October. Massive street protests have ignored Lebanon's sectarian and political divides. Protesters are demanding an overhaul of a political class which they say is inefficient and corrupt. Prime Minister Diab emphasizes government's push for anti-corruption legislation. as well as attempt to secure more than $20 billion in aid from the international community to rescue Lebanon's economy. He promised action to alleviate the effect of inflation on the economy. Since last summer, the Lebanese pound has lost some 60% of its value against the United States dollar. Prime Minister Diab, during his speech, said that the government here has launched an audit of the accounts of the central bank, the Banque de Liban, for the first time ever, and that he asked nations that previously donated money to Lebanon to inform the government of any funds that had been unlawfully plundered. He has also called for an investigation into billions of dollars transferred abroad despite informal capital controls being in place since November. So the government here has approved an economic recovery plan, and last week entered talks to obtain $9 billion in aid on top of another $11 billion in grants and loans already pledged by international donors in 2018. Power cuts are only getting worse. Lebanon only produces a maximum of around 2,000 megawatts of electricity, but peak summer demands is in excess of 3,500 megawatts. This week, fuel barges experienced delays in offloading their cargo, causing electricity output to plummet. State-run power giant Electricity Liban, or EDL, blame foreign banks for the fuel supply disruptions. There have been protests about that, and they broke into the state's power company's branches from Tripoli. The health minister said even new virus cases were recorded, bringing the figure to 961 infections. The community toll now stands at 26 deaths and 251 recoveries. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much. We're having a bit of trouble with the connection, but thank you for your updates, Gerlie, and keep safe and stay healthy over there in Lebanon.
Thank you so much, Alma, and thank you for having me. I'm Gerlie Salazar, reporting from Beirut, Lebanon, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you. Now, in time of physical and emotional distance, we give importance to the unsung service delivered by our frontliners. Our news correspondents positioned all over, our international news correspondents positioned all over the world. Without them, we would not have the eagle-eye focus on the facts of this pandemic and its continuing repercussions on our lives. To our international correspondents, thank you for staying in touch with our viewers. Stay safe, protect yourselves and others. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.